Hey, what's up, folks? Welcome to another episode of the Rich Life Podcast. This is Po Wu with my co-host Lane Kawaoka. How you doing, Lane?
Hey, good to see you again.
Been a while. Today, Lane and I decided we're going to talk about what does it mean to live a rich life, right? Since this is the title of our podcast, we thought it would be good to spend some time talking about what the word rich means because it means different things for everyone. For example, for some folks, it's tied to financial abundance. For others, it's about things like love, health, or independence. We just wanted to talk about this topic to make you guys reflect and think about what it means to be rich to you. There's no right or wrong answer, but what it means to us and if that definition has evolved or changed over the years.
Maybe like when you first sprung this upon me, I was thinking of the standard with wealth or money, you can do what you want with whom you want on your own terms. But I wanted to give something a little bit different. So I started to think of what wealth is not and then how things have changed over the years. Well, how do you want to start off first? You want me to go or you want to go?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I'll go back to my 20s and where I thought that being rich was having a salary or income of $100,000, right? I thought that most importantly, that created an excess of 20, 30 grand at the time, right? I was single, pretty frugal, but just having, I think at the end of the day, I was chasing this feeling of abundance. The money that I had, whether that was hard earned through a job or through passive income, it was this idea of infinity that you can't spend it. So that was one of the big things that I was chasing. And haven't gotten there yet. Over the last decade, people have come and gone, premature deaths, those kind of lessons along the way. Even if you have a lot, you can still live with a lot of insecurities.
Yeah, for sure. I'd say for myself, when I was in university and in medical school, I had a very similar definition of rich, right? I remember thinking 100,000, 200,000 salary a year was a lot of money. And yeah, I couldn't wait to get out into the real world and make an attending physician salary, the end goal, right? So you're going through all these classes, rigorous training to ultimately get to a point where you can make a nice, comfortable physician salary, right? Once you get there, then things start to evolve.
I'll share a story. This is back in college and I was super
Mhm.
broke. My parents always had this thing where I work a job the summer prior and I normally make, I forgot what I got paid, like $12 an hour or whatever. I had to accumulate to
Mhm.
be my spending budget throughout the year. And it doesn't seem like very much money when your parents pay for books and school and most meals. $2,500 buys a lot of beer. I never liked the feeling of storing up the battery and just living off of it come September when I headed off to school. So I think in my junior year, I got a job moving furniture for the event center.
Mhm.
I didn't get paid very much and I didn't really like it, but I just liked that feeling of like my 2,500 or my certain level, $2,000 would never, my bank account would never get that low because I just
Mm.
didn't like that feeling. And that obviously is coming from a place of scarcity.
Yeah.
But even though that's not who you want to be, it is still like to recognize not, I don't want that emotion of the running, you're depleting.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I also, yeah, hear where you're coming from. That's a scarcity mindset. I remember a time when I had over $1,000 in my bank account. I was like, wow, this is amazing. Four
Yeah.
figures. Yeah.
But that was prior to what, 18 or
Yeah.
6.
Yeah, exactly.
And that was a feeling that I think, have you ever gotten that feeling in the last 10 years or ever again? Because I had that feeling too. I think I was like 8 and I had saved up all this birthday money. I had like $200, which is a lot of money for a kid to save up. And I was like, I am freaking set. Have you
Yeah,
ever had, I
exactly.
can't remember if you had that same feeling later on in life.
Not specifically that feeling. I remember when I was in grade school, my first entrepreneurial endeavor came about when I think it was like I want to say seventh grade. I was always jealous of the other kids who got to go to school with cool snacks, whether it's bags of chips or fruit roll-ups. My parents were really frugal, so every day I either got carrot sticks or like a banana, usually like a brown banana. And usually went to school with like a really dry homemade roast beef sandwich on the economy bread.
No
And
Lunchables because that's expensive.
I really just wanted a quarter to go up to the counter to get a bag of chips because nobody ever wanted to trade their snacks with me because I was a sort of known as a kid who went to school with water as their drink and stuff that no one really wanted to trade for. So I came up with an idea to get some quarters to be able to get some snacks, like a bag of chips or something. One thing I was good at was making origami figures. So I made different origami figures and I sold them for 10 cents, 25 cents, and quickly realized that the best-selling items were either the paper ninja stars, where kids could throw it around, or the paper balloons, which I called paper water balloons. So what kids would end up doing is they'd buy a pack of these and then they'd raise their hand to go to the bathroom. Their buddy would join them in a few minutes and they'd fill them up with water and just chuck them at each other. Had a lot of fun that way. And I made something like $80 just from selling these for a quarter, like packs of four for 25 cents. So I made a lot of these and sold a lot of them. And like $80 at the time.
Did you go to school with more wealthier kids or
No, these were pretty working class kids. Yeah. But it wasn't in a very affluent area.
I guess that's just when people grow up, right? People don't who don't got money, they spend it in some silly
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. But holding $80, I thought, wow, this is a lot of money. I can buy a lot of football cards or Snickers bars with these. I remember buying my first candy bar. It was the sweetest feeling in the world because I earned this.
So you never had that same feeling ever again. Maybe on your online banking account, you saw a certain number, like seven figures or something like that. Like you never had that feeling
And
ever
now I think
again.
about it, I got into saving and investing pretty much right away when I started making some money. I made a meager salary as a resident physician, but I started investing. I remember a Roth IRA pretty early, and it's pretty cool to see the balance grow over the years. When it hit 10,000, it's like, oh, that's really cool. Later on, when it hits six figures, whoa, this is pretty amazing. And grows and grows, and that's pretty cool to look back where you started and from humble beginnings, and then just to see that balance grow. It's a nice feeling.
I'll speak for myself. There were times when I started the business, it would make a big payday, like 30 grand. I vividly remember this as I checked my bank account. I was like, what is this? I've never seen such a big transaction. And then time went along and things maybe they got more intense. It got to a point where it's just like you get a nice win, but then you got to pay for this, then you got to pay for that. And shoot, money's just coming in and out. Don't get
Mm,
happy about the wins. And then I struggled with worrying about when you got to pay for certain things your business needs. When you're a business owner, a lot of this is exponential when you just have a normal personal expenses. But
yeah.
I think it accelerated it's not about the number in the account. That shit's gonna come and go was what I realized.
So at some point, I think speaking from my own personal experience, my definition of what it means to be rich gradually evolved. I think I was in my early 30s. I was really stressed out. I was working at a pretty tough job, long commutes. I was working long hours. I was on call every third night. And I remember doing a life insurance exam and came across some abnormalities in my blood regarding my calcium level. Right? So I'm like, oh shit. Being in the medical field, I'm like, this is either some sort of malignancy or something with my parathyroid gland, which governs your calcium levels in your blood. So sent off for my own blood follow-up studies, diagnosed myself with a parathyroid issue. Long story short, they had to go into my neck and do surgery. They found two of my parathyroid glands had adenomas growing on them. This was actually causing me a lot of problems over the years, from bone pains and like muscle cramps. I remember not being able to run more than 2 miles without getting severe pains in my bones and tendons. But I chalked it up to being out of shape or stressed. Yeah, I just realized, oh gosh, health really matters, right? Felt a whole lot different after they took out those two tumors from my neck. Never took it for granted again. So I really enjoyed being able to exercise without getting bone pains or tired easily. In my day-to-day job, I was diagnosing people with all sorts of stuff. I'll never forget diagnosing people with ALS or brain tumors, people our age, no medical problems, living really healthy lives. Just a lot of them just it's a stroke of bad luck, right? A bad draw in the genetic lottery or other circumstances that are of no fault of their own, and you just start to realize, gosh, you never know when it's your time. Right? Also, seeing my dad's premature death, all these things gradually shifted my perception of what's truly important in life. And yeah, I became a lot more health focused, health conscious, because yeah, without your health, none of the financial success or anything really matters, right?
Yeah, it takes a lesson like
Yeah.
you had, right? Which not
Mm,
everybody goes through. Actually, a lot of people don't go through any type
mm,
of thing like that. But it's also like the whole Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Some people constantly have to trade time for money. If not,
mm.
they don't eat or can't live
Yeah.
anymore. But I think all in due time, it's like a curve, right? The wealthiest people move around seemingly slower,
Mhm.
but most of us, myself included, run around with our butt on fire, essentially trading time for money because we want more money, we need more money. There seems to be some kind of need. So we're not taking our time. I've heard that before, that saying, and I understand it, but I still move around quickly, not messing
Mm.
around.
It sounds like you're also intentional about what you're doing and where you want to go to. In striving for financial success, there's something beyond just the dollar signs that you're after.
Yeah. I truly believe you got to get the dollar signs to then transfer it to experiences. The way I see it, these experiences cost money unless you're really creative and lucky sometimes too. I blend the practicality in it all too. You need money.
Most of our listeners would agree with that. That being said, certainly, as you referred to Maslow's hierarchy or needs, like, you need some sort of level of financial stability, right? I know some people are much more intentional about creating a variety of life experiences, placing importance over going after the almighty dollar. For example, most people like to travel, but you can either travel and go to expensive resorts, or you can do it on a shoestring budget and go backpacking. Both cost money, but one costs a lot more. Arguably, the other way is more resourceful. You can get a lot of bang for your buck if you're willing to live strategically and go after experiences and forgo some of the frills.
But still you're like time freedom, right?
Yeah.
Which if you're tied to a 40-hour a week job,
You can't even consider that. You can forget about
right?
going on a backpacking trip through Europe or Asia for weeks.
Yeah.
Most people don't have that luxury.
Here's been my framework for
Mm,
being wealthy. You're always going to be in this kind of cage or a box,
mm,
whether you don't have much money and you're tied to a traditional office job, or you do have a successful business and you got to keep it going. I mean, you're still going to want to do something so that you have some self-worth in most cases. So there's always some kind of box that you're in. And I'm just thinking lately, so maybe having a rich life is being the happiest you can be in this box, whatever box that may be. You got younger kids than you, right? It's a little bit more of a box. You can't really travel that much. This is why my
yeah,
parents never traveled before.
yeah, yeah.
And we're busy at the business career. And I think where I've come these last couple of years is at least acceptance of this is how it is, but we're gonna be as happy as we can and
Mm.
in a way carefree. Everything's gonna be all right. And that's the framework I found. Once you start to adopt that paradigm, you don't really need to hit a certain monetary number.
Yeah, because a lot of us, even if we have businesses that are self-sustaining, if you have school-aged children, well, like that does restrict you a bit. Most people want to give their kids some sort of stability instead of globe-trotting around the world. Most kids strive with routine and stability, being able to be around a group of friends and to develop those stable bonds as they grow up. Yeah. So yeah, it definitely is a balancing act. And I've found that to be the case because on my list of what it means to be rich, after health, I place time, freedom, and independence very high, right? Being able to do what you want to do when you want to do it, not being dictated by a job schedule or someone saying you have to hand in this assignment at a certain time. It is a balancing act, right? Where you're juggling family obligations. You can't exactly just take off. As the kids get older, there's more and more responsibilities around them. But what you alluded to, I've made peace with that. I count my blessings, healthy kids, great kids, and now I get to be a swim dad on the weekends and take them to activities and try to be present with them, which is certainly something I wish my parents did for me, right? Because my parents were never able to, or they never came to any sports events or anything like that.
Yeah, and something else that came to mind during this last retreat we did that the exercise where you have the wheel of life and you
Yeah,
have
real
all the
life.
different categories like health, career,
Yeah.
relationships, spiritual. I think there's a lot of categories in that thing,
Hmm.
like eight. We did it as a group this retreat, and obviously everybody's in different places. I've seen in my business group from an older gentleman who's had a lot of time to work, and he literally was like at a 10 all the way
Yeah.
around, no BS. But I think what I distill down to like wealth and happiness is at least it doesn't matter where you're at. Hopefully, you're not anything less in on a scale from 1 to 10, 3 or less
Mm,
in any of them. The feeling in your head that you're making growth or progress in all of them. To have the feeling of hopelessness or out of control in any of those is not what you want to have, obviously, but the feeling that I'm not where I want to be, but I'm making positive
mm.
incremental progress. I think that is really what I've been using as a framework lately. And I would probably say that's what wealth is. The ability to think about thinking about these types of things and working on these types of things.
Yeah. I like that. And that reminds me of this framework of the six human needs, right? Just to review for our listeners, you have significance, you have certainty, you have,
Uncertainty,
yeah, right.
the zest of life.
Yep. And then the fourth one is love. And then the two higher spiritual needs are growth and contribution. These are basic human needs that are hardwired into all of us. It's important to actually hit all six of these, right? So that's another way of looking
Yeah.
at the definition of richness. How well are you hitting these six core human needs? This model adopted from hierarchy of needs.
Yeah, and in that framework, the growth and contribution is
Mhm.
typically filled in last. You're not volunteering your time or working on small personal development nuances unless you have your basic comfort in order. Same thing with Maslow. You've got the lower rungs covered.
Yeah. And then another framework that I like to use because I come from an integrative medicine background, that's the five elements, right? You got like wood, which represents growth, right? Always growing, having vision and creativity in your life. And you got fire, which is related to joy, passion, and love. You have earth, which is about having a community around you, having stability, which includes financial stability, being able to nurture others. You have metal, which is about structure, organization, and clarity in your life. And then you have water, which is about being able to adapt and going with the flow in life. Right? So this is another framework that I'm always thinking about in terms of which elements am I strong in, or which elements need the cup filled. Yeah.
So of those five, is there a precursor to the others, or you do these first, or
No, not necessarily. Yeah.
yeah,
So
that's
most of
very
us,
Eastern medicine, like
yeah,
they're
very
all
Eastern
equally,
medicine. Yeah.
yeah.
Most of us have maybe two really strong ones, or maybe one strong ones and two like moderately strong ones. Most of us are a little bit weaker in two or three.
Yeah, I think one of them I keyed in on there as like social relationships. And I think we'll talk about this in the next
Yeah,
podcast we do. They say that social relationships are the currency of the wealthy. All too often, especially men, struggle with social relationships in their 20s and 30s, and
for
that
sure.
continues on. Later on, it becomes more important
For
as it
sure.
goes.
I think I agree. It's a very common issue in men as they grow older, right? The ability to share emotions and be vulnerable, which is a prerequisite to building closer bonds and relationships, right? Opening up about yourself and being able to admit weaknesses. It's something that isn't always encouraged in society.
What would you say is not rich that you maybe at one time thought was?
For me, at this point, it's not about the material things. It's not about the car you drive or the clothes that you wear, like the house that you have. It's not about those symbols. It's even less about an actual net worth number. We had talked about how you do need some level of that before you can start to check off these other boxes. Yeah, I'd say that health, I think relationships is a really huge one, right? I think it was Esther Perel who said that the quality of your relationships determines the quality of your life. Outside of health, that's absolutely true. Is there love in your life? That's what makes life meaningful, right? It's not about the achievements. It's not about impressing those people that you might not even really like all that much.
I think ultimately we agree at the end of the day, but my cars or houses, I have a nice car, but an exotic or anything like that. But I think I'm at a point where if I get a new car, I'm gonna get the same exact thing. I think that's when you know you're happy in terms of material things. Right? Yeah, you
Yeah,
could just get another bigger, better. Like I got
yeah.
a Ford Raptor, which is like a
Mm,
souped up F-150. It's not a crazy car. I thought it was crazy at one time, but I'm like, what do I go from here?
I think that's a good thing. That means that deep down that you've reached this level of contentment, right? Which I think is nice because some people they hit one benchmark and then you're always looking up.
Uh,
And how can you outdo the previous benchmark? At some point, we got to ask ourselves, how much is enough?
that's like your water element, right? You're just at ease.
And I think that's really important because if that's not there, then you're always going to be chasing after something that's not attainable.
More gigabytes, more horsepower, more
Yeah.
PV cells on your roofs, more square footage. All right. I think that will close that podcast. You can find us on the YouTube channel, type in comments there, or shoot us an email. Any other question prompts or guests, let us know. Thanks for listening, everybody.